The rain on Thalovos Prime was less water, more chemical discharge, a perpetual drizzle tasting faintly of ozone and regret, slicking the permacrete canyons between kilometer-high towers that scraped a sky perpetually bruised with neon and smog. Down in the shadowed depths, where the glow of advertisements became a flickering memory, lived Kael Vorn, or rather, existed. He was a whisper in the data streams, a rumor among the info brokers, a ghost story told by criminals who'd learned to fear the sudden absence of sound just before the end. Kael was an assassin, perhaps the best the sector had ever known, precisely because no one truly knew him. He cultivated anonymity like a rare, poisonous orchid. His life a fortress of solitude built on untraceable credits and burned identities. Loyalty was a currency he didn't trade in. Alliances were anchors he refused to drop. He moved through the galactic underworld untethered, a force of lethal precision, guided only by the terms of his contracts and an internal code obscured even from himself. Tonight, the rain tasted particularly acrid. Kael stood within the relative dryness of a recessed loading bay, the grated floor vibrating faintly with the thrum of the city's ceaseless machinery far below. Before him, a data slate shimmered, projecting the holographic image of a young woman. Her eyes, large and startlingly clear even in the grainy projection, held a mixture of defiance and something akin to old sorrow. Her hair was the color of spun moonlight, styled in the intricate braids favored by nobility on the core worlds. Amari Vex, princess of the Cygnus Ascendancy, daughter of the recently deceased Emperor Valerius, and now, fugitive. The official channels screamed patricide. They claimed she'd poisoned her father to seize premature control. A tale spun with righteous fury by her own elder sister, Solara, who now sat precariously on the contested throne. The bounty was substantial, enough to retire comfortably on a dozen worlds. 15 million credits, offered by the provisional government Solara hastily controlled, enough to make even seasoned hunters pause, then sharpen their blades. The contract hadn't come through usual channels. It had arrived via a deeply encrypted, single-use cipher keyed to one of Kael's oldest, now defunct, deadliestes. The sender was anonymous, but the resources required to penetrate his security spoke of immense power, or immense desperation. Eliminate Amari Vex. Proof of termination required. The simplicity was chilling. Yet, Kael felt a familiar stirring, not of excitement, but of weariness. Another life reduced to a transaction. Another thread to be snipped in the grand, chaotic tapestry of galactic power struggles. He accepted, not out of greed, but because drifting aimlessly was its own kind of death. A contract provided direction, however grim. His first step wasn't pursuit, but immersion. Amari had reportedly fled towards the outer rim, but the initial sighting placed her, improbably, right here on Thalovos Prime, a notorious hub for smugglers, spies, and those seeking to disappear. If she was here, she'd need passage, resources, allies, and the kind of individuals who catered to fugitive royalty often dabbled in other, less savory enterprises. Kael's immediate objective was peripheral, a target of opportunity that might lead him closer to Amari's shadow trail. A mid-level trafficker named Zorik, known for dealing in exotic, often unwilling, sentient cargo, operated out of the Pleasure Spire Elysian Dreams as in the upper atmospheric levels. Zorik was rumored to have connections that reached into the highest echelons of the underworld, the kind of network a desperate princess might tap into. Taking him out served a dual purpose, cleaning up a minor stain on the galaxy's grimy canvas and potentially yielding information on Amari's whereabouts or contacts. It was a standard infiltration, the kind Kael could perform in his sleep. Elysian Dreams was a monument to excess, a crystalline needle piercing the clouds, its surface shimmering with holographic dancers and promises of synthetic bliss. Security was tight. Biometric scanners, energy fields, heavily armed guards whose chrome augmentations gleamed under the pulsing lights. For Kael, it was merely a series of obstacles to be bypassed. He moved through service conduits and ventilation shafts, a phantom navigating the building's metallic veins. His senses, honed by years of practice and subtle technological enhancements, integrated directly into his nervous system, picked up the patrol patterns, the electronic surveillance sweeps, the faint whir of hidden defense turrets. He disabled systems with targeted electromagnetic pulses, bypassed locks with practiced ease, his movements fluid and silent, leaving no trace of his passage. Zorek's private suite was located near the spire's apex, offering panoramic views of the glittering, rain-streaked cityscape. Kael phased through the reinforced door using a localized molecular disruptor, just as Zorek was concluding a comm call, his back turned. The trafficker was corpulent, draped in garish silks, rings flashing on his thick fingers. He smelled of stale spice wine and fear. Kael didn't announce himself. There was a brief, almost imperceptible sigh of displaced air, a flicker of shadow, and Zorek crumpled to the luxurious synth carpet. A single, precise neuro-stunner dart embedded at the base of his skull. Kael didn't kill unless the contract specified it, or unless necessity dictated. Information was often more valuable than a corpse. He accessed Zorek's private terminal, slicing through layers of encryption with practiced speed, shipping manifests, coded transaction logs, contact lists. He worked quickly, efficiently, downloading relevant data onto a shielded shard. Then, something else caught his attention, a separate, heavily isolated file directory, flagged with biohazard warnings. Curiosity, a dangerous luxury in his profession, prompted him to delve deeper. Inside were fragmented reports, surveillance footage, references to a clandestine project codenamed Neuron. The images were horrifying. Small figures, children, restrained in sterile labs, invasive procedures, strange neurological reactions, some subjects succumbing to seizures, others displaying unnerving cognitive shifts. The location data pointed to a remote facility on an asteroid belt within the Cygnus Ascendancy, far from prying eyes. Kael felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. He'd encountered whispers of black projects before, the dark underbelly of galactic progress. But this felt different, more systematic, more monstrous. He copied the entire directory, a sense of unease settling over him. As the download completed, a proximity alert chimed softly in his auditory implant. Multiple hostiles, approaching fast. Heavy armor signatures, energy weapons powering up. Not the Spire's regular security. These were professionals, bounty hunters, or perhaps Solara's forces, casting a wide net. He had what he came for, and Zorek's associates would soon discover their boss incapacitated. Time to leave. But as he turned towards his planned exfiltration route, a maintenance shaft hidden behind a holographic projection of a nebula, another alert flared. Life signs, clustered in a hidden sublevel Zorek's terminal, hadn't shown accessed via a concealed elevator. Captives. Zorek's primary trade. Kael hesitated. His contract was Amari. His survival depended on minimizing engagement. Yet, the images from the Neuron file lingered. Children. Vulnerable. Exploited. Leaving innocents to an unknown fate. Especially when hunters were closing in, felt wrong. It was an illogical, inefficient impulse. A crack in the armor of his detachment. He made a decision, detouring towards the hidden elevator. He overrode the lock mechanism. The doors hissed open, revealing a cramped, dimly lit space. Several figures huddled within, mostly women, their faces pale and etched with fear, their clothing ragged. They flinched as he appeared, expecting another tormentor. Quickly, Kael's voice was a low rasp, rarely used. There are armed individuals entering the suite above. This spire is no longer safe. Follow me if you want to get out. There was no time for reassurance, only urgency. Hesitantly, spurred by the sounds of heavy footsteps echoing from the corridor above, they followed him into the maintenance shaft. He led them downwards, navigating the labyrinthine network with an instinct born of countless infiltrations and escapes. Behind them, the distant sounds of weapons fire confirmed his assessment. A firefight had erupted. Zorak's guards versus the newcomers. Good. Let them thin each other out. He guided the frightened group towards a lower-level service hangar, planning to acquire a discreet transport. As they emerged into a dimly lit, grease-stained bay filled with utility vehicles and cargo skiffs, motion sensors blared. Figures dropped from the ceiling gantries, landing silently around them. Augmented hunters, clad in matte black armor, visors glowing with malevolent red light. They carried pulse rifles and stun batons, more professional, more dangerous than the ones engaging Zorak's men upstairs. Target acquired. One of the hunters growled, its voice a metallic rasp through its helmet's external speaker. Its weapon leveled, not at Kael, but at someone behind him. Kael spun, his own sidearm. A custom-built variable energy pistol, already drawn, standing slightly apart from the other captives, her posture radiating a desperate defiance, despite her torn clothing and the smear of grime on her cheek, was the woman from the holographic contract, Amari Vex. Her eyes, those same clear, sorrowful eyes, met his. Recognition flickered, followed by confusion, then primal fear as the hunters advanced. 15 million for the princess, dead or alive, another hunter announced. Its visor tracking Amari. The rest are collateral. Eliminate them. Something snapped within Kael. The contract, the lies, the children in the files, Amari's hunted expression. It wasn't the carefully constructed narrative of a patricidal usurper. It was the look of someone cornered, betrayed, running for her life from something far darker than a simple power grab. The official story stank like the chemical rain outside. He had a choice: fulfill the contract, collect the credits, and walk away, maintaining his precious anonymity, or discard the mission, protect this woman, and plunge himself into the heart of a conspiracy that smelled increasingly foul. His hand tightened on his pistol. The weariness he often felt was replaced by a sudden, sharp clarity. He stepped deliberately, placing himself between Amari and the advancing hunters. Correction. Kael's voice was cold steel, cutting through the hangar's tense air. The bounty is canceled. The lead hunter paused, its head tilting slightly. Identify yourself. Leave, Kael stated, his stance unwavering, pistol held steady. Now. The hunter emitted a harsh, mechanical laugh. Bold words for a dead man. Engage! The hangar erupted in chaos. Pulse rifle fire stitched searing lines across the floor and bulkheads. Kael moved, a blur of motion, shoving Amari and the other captives towards the relative cover of a heavy cargo lifter. He returned fire, his shots precise, targeting weapon arms and optical sensors, disabling rather than killing where possible, conserving energy. 2 hunters went down, their augmentations sparking. The others pressed the attack, flanking. Using suppressing fire, Kael activated a localized sonic pulse, disorienting them momentarily. Buying precious seconds, he grabbed Amari's arm. Stay low! Move! He yelled. pulling her deeper into the cluttered shadows of the hangar bay, while laying down covering fire for the other escaping women, who scattered towards various exits. One of the captives, a young Twi'lek girl, stumbled, terror freezing her in the open. A hunter raised its rifle. Without conscious thought, Kael threw himself sideways, firing a high-energy burst that vaporized the hunter's weapon, simultaneously tackling the girl behind a stack of fuel cells just as plasma scorched the spot where she'd stood. He pushed her towards the others. "Go! Don't stop!" He was exposed. Another hunter capitalized, lunging forward with a crackling stun baton. Kael dodged the swing, the energy discharge searing the air beside his head. He dropped low, sweeping the hunter's legs out from under it, and delivered a precise nerve strike to the back of its neck as it fell. Armored limbs went limp. 3 down. 2 remained, circling cautiously. Recognizing they faced more than some random security guard, Amari watched, crouched behind the cargo lifter, her eyes wide with a mixture of terror and astonishment. This silent, grim figure who had materialized from the shadows, who moments ago she might have mistaken for another captor, was now defending her with lethal efficiency against forces clearly sent for her. Why? Who was he? Kael risked a glance back at her. Her expression wasn't just fear, it was calculation. She was assessing him, the situation, looking for an angle, an escape. Good. She wasn't helpless. "We need to get to a ship," he said, his voice tight, eyes scanning the remaining threats. "Which one of these rust buckets flies?" One of the remaining hunters opened fire again, forcing Kael back behind cover. The other moved swiftly, trying to flank Amari's position. Kael anticipated the move, rolling out and firing 3 rapid shots. The first 2 impacted the hunter's chest plate, scoring the armor but not penetrating. The third found the weaker articulation joint at the shoulder, disabling the arm holding the pulse rifle. The hunter staggered back, momentarily vulnerable. Kael didn't hesitate. He closed the distance, disabling the final hunter with a combination of close-quarters combat and another targeted energy pistol shot to its primary sensor array. Silence descended, broken only by the crackle of damaged circuitry and the distant city hum filtering into the hangar. Kael deactivated his weapon, but kept it ready. He turned to Amari, his expression unreadable behind the subtle shimmer of his optical overlay. The other captives had vanished, hopefully finding their way out during the firefight. Only he and the princess remained. "Are you injured?" he asked, his tone clipped. "Professional." Amari slowly rose from her crouch, brushing debris from her torn sleeve. She eyed the disabled hunters warily, then looked back at Kael. "No. Thank you. You saved my life." Her voice was steadier now, laced with regal authority despite her appearance. "Who are you? Why did you help me?" "Those hunters. They were sent by my sister." "My name is Kael," he replied simply, offering no further explanation. He gestured towards the collection of battered vessels in the hangar. "We need transport, something fast, discreet, and preferably not broadcasting its registry to every patrol in the sector." Amari scanned the ships. Her gaze lingered on a sleek, dark gray courier vessel tucked away in a corner, partially covered by a tarpaulin. It looked older, but well maintained, its lines suggesting speed and modifications for stealth. "That one," she said, pointing. "The Stardust Drifter. It belongs to an acquaintance. The activation code should be standard for this type of modified freighter." Kael nodded, already moving towards the ship, his senses alert for any further threats. He quickly accessed the cockpit, bypassing the standard security protocols. The engines hummed to life with a satisfying thrum. "Get in," he ordered, settling into the pilot's seat. his hands moving expertly over the controls, checking systems, plotting an escape vector through the cluttered lower city airspace. Amari strapped herself into the co-pilot's seat, her eyes still fixed on Kael. "They offered 15 million credits for me," she stated quietly. "Why turn that down?" Kael didn't look at her. His focus was on navigating the ship out of the hangar and into the chaotic tapestry of Thalovos Prime's lower traffic lanes, dodging automated cargo haulers and patrol drones. "Let's just say I have reason to doubt the official story surrounding your father's death," he said, his voice low. "And I don't like bounty hunters who target unarmed civilians." He recalled the file marked Neuron, the images of the children, or those they work for. They flew in silence for a while, the city lights painting fleeting patterns across the cockpit viewport. Kael navigated expertly, using his knowledge of the city's underbelly to avoid official patrols, slipping through sensor gaps and using atmospheric interference to mask their energy signature. Finally, as they reached the edge of the denser cityscape, heading towards the less populated industrial zones, Amari spoke again, her voice laced with a desperate urgency. "My sister, Solara, she framed me. My father discovered what she was doing. The experiments," he confronted her. "She killed him. Kael, not me. She poisoned him and used her position, her influence, to make it look like I was responsible. She needed me out of the way to continue her work." Kael listened, his expression unchanging, but her words resonated with the fragmented data he'd downloaded from Zorik's terminal. The Neuron Project, children, a secret facility, a powerful figure pulling the strings, Solara Vex. It fit sickeningly well. "What kind of experiments?" he asked, keeping his tone neutral. Amari hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. Trusting him was a gamble, but he was the only reason she was still alive. "They call it Project Neuron. Solara believes she can force cognitive evolution, create enhanced individuals, soldiers, psychics, obedient weapons. She started small, using orphans, street children from the outer colonies. My father found out about the facility, the disappearances. He was horrified. He planned to expose her, to stop her, but she acted first." Tears welled in Amari's eyes, but she blinked them back fiercely. "She used a fast-acting neurotoxin, mimicking cardiac arrest. Only her personal medical droid attended him. She controlled the narrative from the start. I had evidence, data logs implicating her, but I had to flee before I could present it. She declared me a traitor, put out the bounty." Kael absorbed the information, connecting the dots. Solara's ruthlessness, the scale of her ambition, the calculated cruelty of framing her own sister, and the children. That resonated on a deeper, more disturbing level. He remembered fragmented mission logs from years ago, contracts involving disrupting supply lines to alleged rebel groups in the Cygnus periphery, standard mercenary work. But one contract, heavily redacted, involved disabling security grids around a remote asteroid mining outpost that had gone silent. He hadn't questioned it then. It was just a job. Could that have been the facility Amari spoke of? Had he, unknowingly, helped Solara by removing potential obstacles? The thought left a bitter taste in his mouth. His carefully constructed detachment felt like a shield full of holes. "Where is this evidence now?" Kael asked, changing the subject slightly, bringing the focus back to the practical. "I encoded it onto a bio-linked data chip," Amari explained, "implanted beneath my skin. It can only be accessed with my specific biometric signature. It contains Solara's private logs, research notes, directives concerning the Neuron Project, even audio recordings of her discussing my father's removal." Kael nodded. "Smart. Secure. but it also made her the sole key to exposing her sister. No wonder Solara wanted her silenced permanently. We need a safe place, somewhere off-grid. Secure, somewhere we can analyze this data and plan our next move. He thought for a moment, accessing his internal, encrypted maps. Thalovos Prime was too hot now. They needed to leave the system. There was a place, a GO station in an uncharted nebula nearby, a relic from a forgotten war, retrofitted into one of his many hidden sanctuaries. Secure, isolated, virtually undetectable. I know a place, he said. Set course for the Serpent's Eye Nebula. As the Stardust Drifter slipped out of Thalovos Prime's gravity well and jumped into hyperspace, the silence in the cockpit stretched again. Amari seemed exhausted, the adrenaline fading, leaving behind bone-deep weariness and grief. Kael remained vigilant, monitoring the ship's systems, scanning for any sign of pursuit. His mind, however, was racing. He had discarded a lucrative contract, exposed himself, and was now harboring a fugitive princess who held the key to a conspiracy involving illegal human experimentation and regicide. He was no longer just an assassin, he was a participant, and somewhere, in the cold calculus of his past actions, he might even be complicit. The ghost was becoming solid, drawn into a conflict he hadn't sought, but one his conscience, long dormant, wouldn't let him ignore. The path ahead was uncertain, dangerous, and directly opposed to the solitary existence he had cultivated for so long. Yet, for the first time in years, Kael Vorn felt something other than the dull ache of detachment. He felt a flicker of purpose. The Serpent's Eye Nebula was a churning vortex of incandescent gas and dark matter clouds, beautiful and treacherous. Navigation required precision, weaving through gravitational eddies and sensor-jamming cosmic dust. Kael's sanctuary was nestled deep within, an asteroid hollowed out and retrofitted with stealth technology, advanced life support, and formidable defenses. It was Spartan, functional, reflecting its owner's personality. Docking the Stardust Drifter inside the concealed landing bay, Kael led Amari into the station proper. The air was recycled but clean, the lighting subdued. Holographic tactical displays flickered on standby along one wall of the main operations center. "Make yourself comfortable," Kael said, gesturing towards a small living area off the main ops room. "Such as it is. Food synthesizer is functional. Water is clean. The sonic shower can remove most industrial grime." He turned back to the main console, already initiating deep space scans and running diagnostics on the station's security grid. Amari looked around the sterile environment. It was a place built for survival, not comfort, a reflection of the man himself. Yet, it felt strangely safe after the chaos of Thalovos Prime. "Thank you, Kael," she said softly, "for everything." He gave a non-committal grunt, his attention focused on the screens. "We need to access that data chip. The sooner we know the full scope of Solara's operations and the evidence you possess, the better we can plan." Amari nodded, touching the spot just below her collarbone where the chip was implanted. "I need a bio-interface reader, standard galactic tech, but secure." Kael indicated a workstation. "There, full medical suite integration. It can handle the interface safely." The process was quick. Amari placed her hand on the reader, keyed in a mental passcode sequence, and the encrypted data flowed onto Kael's secure, isolated network. Files bloomed across the main holographic display, scientific reports filled with horrifying jargon masking brutal procedures, financial records showing vast sums funneled into shell corporations, likely funding the project, lists of personnel involved, scientists, guards, suppliers, and then the audio logs. Solara's voice, cold and precise, discussing experimental parameters, acceptable casualty rates, and finally, a chillingly calm conversation with an unnamed subordinate about the necessity and method of Emperor Valerius's assassination. The evidence was damning, irrefutable. Kael listened, his face grim. The scope of Project Neuron was larger than he'd initially gathered from Zorik's fragmented files. Multiple hidden facilities, hundreds of children subjected to the experiments over several years, his past involvement, disabling security on that one asteroid outpost, now felt like a burning coal in his gut. He hadn't known, but ignorance was no excuse. He had facilitated this horror, indirectly. Amari watched his reaction, saw the tightening of his jaw, the coldness in his eyes deepening into something else, self-recrimination. "You couldn't have known," she said quietly. "Doesn't matter." Kael bit out. Actions have consequences, intended or not. He focused back on the data. This is enough to bring down Solara, but presenting it is the challenge. Your sister controls the Imperial fleet, the state media. She's painted you as a traitor, showing up at the Galactic Council proclaiming her guilt. Armed only with this data, might get you silenced before you can even speak. "I know," Amari said, her voice firming with resolve. "Which is why I need help. My other sisters, Raya and Leora, they don't trust Solara, but they don't have proof of her betrayal. Raya commands the Royal Guard's honor detachment, fiercely loyal to our father's memory, but currently stationed on a remote garrison world, likely under Solara's surveillance. Leora is a diplomat, skilled in negotiation and navigating political currents, but she was off-world negotiating a trade treaty when it happened. Solara has likely isolated them, feeding them the same lies she fed the galaxy. Raya the warrior, Leora the diplomat, Kael mused, accessing public intelligence files on the Vex dynasty. If we can reach them, prove Solara's guilt to them, they could be powerful allies. Raya commands troops. Leora understands the political battlefield, but reaching them is dangerous, Amari cautioned. Solara will be watching all communications. Any attempt to contact them directly could lead her forces straight to us and to them. "We won't contact them directly," Kael said, already formulating a plan. His mind worked like a complex algorithm, processing threats, variables, potential routes. "We need to force their hand, create a situation where they have to investigate independently, where the official story starts to unravel for them. We leak pieces of this evidence, untraceably, into channels they monitor. Not enough to expose our hand, but enough to plant seeds of doubt, to make them question Solara's narrative." He pointed to a specific financial trail within Solara's records, leading to a shell corporation funding black site procurements. This corporation has dealings near Raya's garrison. If evidence of its true purpose surfaces there, he then highlighted communication logs between Solara and a known political rival of Leora's faction. And if Leora were to receive anonymous intelligence suggesting Solara is undermining her diplomatic efforts using underhanded tactics, it was intricate, risky, relying on psychological manipulation and precise information control. But it was Kael's specialty. For the next few days, the Ghost Station became a hub of covert activity. Kael, using layers of proxies and cutouts across the galaxy, began carefully seeding fragments of information. A corrupted data packet appearing in a routine supply audit at Raya's garrison, hinting at illegal shipments. An encrypted tip-off sent to one of Leora's trusted aides, suggesting Solara was sabotaging her treaty negotiations for personal gain. Referencing specific coded communications Kael had decrypted. They didn't mention Amari, or the assassination, or Project Neuron directly, Just enough inconsistencies to make astute individuals like Raya and Leora suspicious of their older sister. Meanwhile, Amari studied the neuron data, her horror growing, but so did her determination. She began compiling a comprehensive report, organizing the evidence, preparing herself for the inevitable confrontation. She also observed Kael. He was relentless, focused, rarely sleeping. Subsisting on nutrient paste and synthesized caffeine, he moved with a quiet intensity, his past shrouded in mystery. Yet his actions spoke volumes. He was risking everything for her, for justice. A strange, tentative bond formed between them in the sterile confines of the station, forged in shared danger and a common enemy. She saw glimpses of the man beneath the assassin's mask, the guilt over his past, the unexpected protective instinct, the fierce intelligence. Their careful strategy seemed to be working. Encrypted whispers intercepted by Kael's listening posts indicated unrest within Raya's command structure. Questions were being asked about irregularities in supply manifests. Leora, meanwhile, had abruptly postponed her treaty signing, citing unexpected political complications, a diplomatic code for discovering betrayal. The seeds of doubt were sprouting. But Solara was not idle. Realizing her sister was still alive and potentially gathering allies, she intensified her hunt. Bounty hunters were replaced by elite Imperial intelligence operatives, surgical strike teams tasked with retrieving Amari and eliminating anyone helping her. Kael's station, despite its stealth capabilities, wouldn't remain hidden forever under such scrutiny. They needed to move, to consolidate their potential allies. "It's time," Kael announced one cycle, looking up from his console where advanced probability algorithms modeled Solara's likely search patterns. Raya's garrison world, Cygnus Sigma Dotties, showing signs of increased surveillance, but also internal friction. Leora is rerouting her diplomatic cruiser towards the core worlds, away from Solara's immediate sphere of influence. If we move now, we might be able to rendezvous with Raya first, present the full evidence, and hopefully gain her support before Solara clamps down completely. Amari nodded, her expression determined. Raya is impulsive, fiercely loyal to our father. If she sees proof of Solara's betrayal, she won't hesitate. But she's also protective. She might see you as a threat initially. "I'm used to it," Kael said dryly. "Prepare for departure. We take the Stardust Drifter. Minimal energy signature, maximum speed, leaving the Go Station behind." They jumped back into hyperspace, setting course for Cygnus Sigma. The journey was tense, filled with navigating heavily patrolled sectors and dodging Imperial checkpoints. Kael pushed the courier ship to its limits, his piloting skills honed by years of desperate escapes. As they approached Raya's garrison world, a harsh reality hit them. The system was under virtual lockdown. An Imperial Star Destroyer, Solara's flagship, the Retribution, hung in orbit, a menacing silhouette against the planet's modeled cloudscape. Patrols were thick, sensor sweeps constant. A direct approach was impossible. Solara anticipated this, Kael muttered, pulling the drifter back into the cover of a dense asteroid cluster on the system's edge. "She's cornered Raya, probably feeding her disinformation, waiting for us to show ourselves." Amari looked despairingly at the tactical display. "Then we can't reach her." "Not directly," Kael confirmed. "But Raya is a warrior. If she feels trapped, if she suspects betrayal, she won't sit idle. She'll look for a way out, a way to fight back." He zoomed in on the planet's surface map, highlighting the rugged, sparsely populated southern continent, known for its treacherous mountain ranges and deep canyons, ideal terrain for insurgents or for a clandestine meeting. Raya knows these mountains, Her honor guard trained here. If she manages to slip Solara's leash, this is where she might go to regroup, to establish a covert comm link. It's a long shot, Amari breathed. It's the only shot we have, Kael countered. We'll land on the far side of the continent. Proceed overland. Minimal tech signature. We monitor encrypted military channels Raya might use. If she makes a move, we'll be ready to intercept her. Landing the Stardust Drifter stealthily in a remote, ice-choked canyon. Kael and Amari began their trek. The terrain was brutal, the air thin and cold. They traveled light, relying on Kael's survival skills and Amari's unexpected resilience. Days blurred into a rhythm of cautious movement, hiding from aerial patrols and monitoring communications. Kael taught Amari basic fieldcraft, how to move silently, how to read terrain, how to survive. In turn, she shared stories of her family, of happier times before Solara's ambition poisoned everything, painting a picture of the sisters Kael now sought as allies. Then data breakthrough, a tightly encrypted burst transmission, using old Royal Guard codes, flickered across Kael's scanner. It was short, fragmented. But the coordinates were clear, a rendezvous point deep in the treacherous Dragon's Teeth Peaks, designated Eagle's Nest. It had to be Raya. They changed course immediately, pushing themselves harder. The climb into the Dragon's Teeth was perilous, demanding every ounce of their strength and Kael's expertise. As they neared the coordinates, a hidden cave system marked by a specific rock formation, Kael signaled a halt. He scanned the area meticulously. Thermal signatures, faint energy readings. Someone was here, waiting, but also listening posts, subtly placed seismic sensors, a trap, or just Raya being cautious. Stay here, Kael instructed Amari, finding her cover behind a rocky outcrop. I'll scout ahead. If I'm not back in 30 minutes, or if you hear sustained weapons fire, run. Take the emergency beacon and head south. Don't stop. Amari gripped his arm. Be careful, Kael. He gave a curt nod and melted into the shadows, moving like a wraith towards the cave entrance. He bypassed the outer perimeter sensors easily, slipping inside the dark opening. The cave tunnel sloped downwards, opening into a larger cavern, dimly lit by glow strips. Figures waited within, soldiers in the gray and gold uniforms of the Royal Guard Honor Detachment, weapons ready. And standing before them, tall and imposing, clad in combat armor, her hand resting on the grip of a ceremonial energy sword, was Raya Vex. Her face, bearing a strong family resemblance to Amari and Solara, was set in hard lines, suspicion radiating from her stance. Report. Raya snapped as Kael emerged from the shadows, her voice echoing slightly in the cavern. Her guards tensed, weapons raising. Kael held up his hands slowly, palms open. Princess Raya, I'm not your enemy. I'm here with your sister, Amari. Raya's eyes narrowed. Amari died alive. Solara told us she died resisting arrest after murdering our father. The doubt Kael had seeded was evident, warring with years of ingrained loyalty and the official narrative hammered home by Solara. Who are you? One of Solara's spies, trying to lure me out. My name is Kael Vorn, he said calmly. I was hired to eliminate Amari. I chose not to. She's alive, and she has proof. Proof that Solara killed your father and framed her to cover up grotesque experiments. Raya scoffed, though a flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. Lies. Solara showed us evidence. Manufactured evidence, Kael interrupted. Amari carries the truth. Let her show you. She's waiting nearby. Before Raya could respond, a new voice cut through the tension, smooth and measured. Perhaps, dear sister, we should hear him out. From a side passage, another figure emerged, elegant, composed, dressed in the deep blues of a diplomatic envoy. Leora Vex stepped into the light. Her arrival was unexpected. "Leora!" Raya exclaimed, surprised. "How did you get here?" "Solara has the system locked down." Leora offered a faint, knowing smile. "Solara underestimates the value of diplomatic immunity and certain back channels. I received concerning intelligence, Raya, discrepancies that suggested Solara was not being entirely truthful about Father's death or Amari's alleged treason. When your coded transmission came through, I rerouted my ship, used an old smuggler's route Kael here seems familiar with." She glanced at Kael with sharp, assessing eyes, "and arrived shortly before you did. I suspected Solara might try to trap you." The situation had shifted. With both sisters present, the potential for alliance increased, but so did the complexity. Raya still looked skeptical, her hand tight on her sword. Leora seemed more open, but her diplomatic training made her naturally cautious, her mind calculating angles Kael couldn't guess. "Bring Amari here," Leora instructed Kael, her gaze steady. "Let us see this proof she carries." Kael gave a slight bow and retreated, returning moments later with Amari. The reunion between the sisters was fraught with emotion. Raya visibly recoiled at first, conditioned by Solara's lies, then rushed forward, checking Amari for injuries, relief warring with suspicion. Leora embraced Amari warmly, her eyes searching her younger sister's face for the truth. "It's true, Raya." "Leora," Amari pleaded, her voice thick with emotion. "Solara killed Father. She tried to kill me. She's hurting innocent people, children, for her insane project." She quickly explained about the bio-linked chip. Using a portable reader Leora produced from her diplomatic kit, Amari accessed the data. Kael stood back, observing, letting the sisters process the raw, undeniable evidence. Solara's cold voice detailing the assassination plot, the horrific Neuron Project files, the financial trails, the orders to hunt Amari down. Raya's face went pale, then flushed with incandescent rage. Her suspicion vanished, replaced by pure, vengeful fury. She slammed her fist against the cavern wall, cracking the stone. "That snake!" she dared. "Father, Amari, the children." Her hand gripped her energy sword so tightly, her knuckles turned white. Leora's reaction was quieter, but no less intense. Her face became an icy mask of controlled fury, her diplomatic composure momentarily fractured by the depth of her sister's betrayal. "Project Neuron," she whispered, scrolling through the reports. "The scale of it, the inhumanity. This goes beyond treason. This is monstrous." She looked up, her eyes meeting Kael's. "You knew about this." "Zorik's files." Kael nodded grimly. "Fragments. Enough to know the official story about Amari was wrong. And enough," he added, his voice low, "to realize I may have unknowingly aided Solara years ago on a contract." Raya whirled on him, her sword half drawn. "You worked for her, unknowingly," Kael repeated, meeting her glare without flinching. "A contract to disable security on a remote outpost. I didn't know its purpose then. I know now, and I intend to help you stop her." Leora placed a calming hand on Raya's arm. "His actions speak for themselves. Sister, he saved Amari, brought her here, brought us the truth. His past involvement is regrettable, but his present alliance seems genuine." She turned back to Kael. "Solara has a star destroyer in orbit and ground troops loyal to her. Raya's honor guard is loyal to her, but outnumbered. We have the proof. But challenging Solara directly here is suicide." "Agreed," Kael said. "Solara thinks she has you contained, Raya. She knows Leora is here now. Likely tracked her shuttle's entry despite her precautions. She'll expect us to be trapped. Desperate. She won't expect a coordinated countermove. He brought up a holographic map of the system, highlighting the Star Destroyer Retribution. Her command ship is her power base. Cripple it, capture her, and her authority collapses. We need to get off this planet, regroup, and take the fight to her. Rhea paced, her warrior instincts taking over. My honor guard can create a diversion, engage Solera's ground troops, draw their attention away from the southern continent. It will be costly, but it could buy you time to escape. Too risky. Leora countered immediately. We can't afford to sacrifice your guard. We need every loyal soldier for what comes next. There must be another way. Kael pointed to the Stardust Drifter's location on the map. My ship is hidden, shielded, large enough for us, small enough to potentially slip through the blockade during the confusion Rhea mentioned, but without the pitched battle. We need a different kind of diversion, something Solara won't anticipate. His eyes scanned the data Amari had provided, lingering on the Neuron Project personnel lists. Solara has scientists working for her, some under duress, according to Amari's findings. If we could trigger an emergency alert from one of the hidden neuron facilities, perhaps leaked data suggesting a containment breach or a catastrophic failure, Leora caught on immediately. It would force Solara to divert resources, perhaps even recall ships from the blockade to investigate or contain the situation, especially if the leaked data hints at exposure risk to populated areas. Amari nodded eagerly. I recognize some of the communication protocols for the asteroid facility, the one Father discovered. I might be able to spoof a distress signal, embed it with corrupted, alarming experimental data. It's dangerous, Rhea conceded, but less costly in lives than a direct assault. All right, let's do it. Amari Iliora, you work on the fake distress signal. Kael, prepare your ship. My guard and I will provide close security, ensure no patrols stumble upon you while you work, and escort you to the drifter when it's time. The plan was set. Working frantically against time, Amari and Leora, guided by Kael's technical expertise in bypassing security protocols, crafted a convincing distress signal, laced with fabricated data hinting at neuron subjects escaping containment, exhibiting uncontrollable psychic phenomena. Kael prepped the Stardust Drifter, ensuring its stealth systems were optimized, its engines primed for a high-speed burn. Rhea positioned her guards, creating a silent perimeter, eyes scanning the snowy peaks for any sign of Solara's forces. Hours later, the signal was ready. Amari transmitted it, routing it through layers of obfuscating relays Kael set up, making it appear to originate from the hidden neuron facility deep within the Ascendancy. They waited, nerves stretched taut. Then, Kael's monitoring systems lit up, alarms sounding on the Retribution. Hasty, coded communications between Solara's command staff. 2 frigates detached from the orbital blockade, changing course abruptly towards the coordinates of the supposed outbreak. Patrol patterns shifted, creating momentary gaps in the sensor grid. Now, Kael urged. That's our window. It won't last long. Under the cover of darkness and swirling snow, escorted by Rhea and her guards, Kael, Amari, and Leora raced towards the hidden canyon where the Stardust Drifter waited. They scrambled aboard, engines humming to life. Rhea clasped Amari's hand tightly. Go. Expose her. Avenge Father. We will hold here. Rally loyal forces and await your signal. Leora nodded. Present the evidence to the Council. We will handle the political fallout here once Solara's command is fractured. With a final nod, Kael sealed the ramp. The Stardust Drifter lifted silently, its stealth systems engaged, hugging the canyon walls before rising rapidly through the atmosphere. Exploiting the temporary hole in Solara's sensor net, Kael pushed the ship hard, angling towards the system's jump point, relief washing over him as the planet Cygnus Sigma dwindled behind them. They had the evidence, they had allies, and they were free. But the confrontation with Solara was yet to come. She wouldn't give up her power, or her project, easily. The most dangerous part of their journey was just beginning. Their destination was Kael's primary stronghold, a significantly larger and more fortified base than the Ghost Station, hidden within a dense nebula far from established space lanes. It was equipped with advanced fabrication units, medical bays, extensive armories, and powerful communication arrays capable of reaching the Galactic Council securely. Here, they could analyze the evidence thoroughly, prepare their case, and, Kael admitted grimly to himself, prepare for Solara's inevitable retaliation. He knew his former anonymity was shattered. Helping the Vex sisters had painted a massive target on his back. Solara wouldn't just hunt Amari anymore. She would hunt him, using all the resources of the Cygnus Ascendancy's intelligence network. Upon arrival, the sisters immediately set to work. Leora, the diplomat, began drafting the formal accusation to be presented to the Galactic Council, meticulously cross-referencing Amari's data chip with galactic law and precedent. Amari focused on the Neuron Project files, trying to identify all the victims, locate other potential hidden facilities, and understand the full scientific horror of Solara's ambition. Kael, meanwhile, fortified the stronghold's defenses, set up countermeasures against intrusion, and monitored Solara's movements through his network of underworld contacts and hacked intelligence feeds. News arrived sporadically from Rye via heavily encrypted, short-burst transmissions. She had successfully evaded Solara's attempts to capture her after the diversion, rallying several regiments whose commanders remained loyal to her father's memory or distrusted Solara's rapid, brutal ascension. A shadow civil war was brewing within the Ascendancy. Forces loyal to Solara clashing with those sympathetic to Rhea and the memory of the old emperor. The situation was volatile, dangerous. Solara, enraged by their escape and the growing resistance, doubled down. Propaganda painted Amari, Rhea, and Leora as power-hungry traitors manipulated by an unknown, shadowy figure, Kael. She locked down the Ascendancy, declared martial law in several sectors, and deployed her most elite troops, including cybernetically enhanced shock troopers rumored to be early, successful products of the Neuron Project's secondary applications, to hunt down the rebels and locate Kael's base. The net was tightening. She's adapting, Kael reported grimly, pointing to shifting fleet movements on the tactical display. She's using predictive algorithms, analyzing our possible escape vectors, our potential resource needs. She's learning my patterns, or lack thereof. We need to present the case to the council soon, Leora urged, looking up from her data pad, her face etched with worry. Before Solara consolidates her power further or manages to destroy the evidence, or us. Agreed, Kael said. But a direct transmission is too risky. She'll intercept it, jam it, discredit it. We need to appear before the council in person, all of us. Amari looked up, startled. Travel to the council seat on Coruscant Minor. Solara controls the space lanes, not all of them, Kael countered. And she won't expect such a bold move. We travel under deep cover, using a series of ship swaps, false registries, navigating forgotten hyperspace routes. It's dangerous, but it's the only way to guarantee our testimony is heard. Preparations began immediately. Kael arranged for a sequence of untraceable ships, plotting a complex route that would take them weeks. Moving like ghosts through the fringes of the galaxy, Leora finalized her presentation, backing up Amari's data chip with corroborating evidence Kael had managed to acquire from secured Cygnus military servers. Evidence of troop movements ordered by Solara consistent with the assassination timeline and the subsequent cover-up. Amari prepared herself emotionally for the public testimony, for confronting the memory of her father's death and her sister's betrayal on a galactic stage. Just as they were finalizing their departure plans, the stronghold's proximity alarms shrieked. Multiple high-energy signatures, dropping out of hyperspace far too close, bypassing the outer sensor net. Elite strike craft, bearing Solara's personal crest, and one larger signature, a warship, smaller than the Retribution, but heavily armed. "She found us," Kael stated grimly, his hands flying over the defense consoles, activating particle shields, deploying countermeasures, bringing weapon systems online. She must have tortured the information out of someone, or her enhanced troops have tracking capabilities beyond standard tech. "Can the station hold?" Leora asked, her voice tight. "Against this force?" "Not indefinitely," Kael admitted. "She's not trying to capture us this time. This is an extermination fleet." Explosions rocked the asteroid base as the first wave of attackers opened fire. Energy beams slammed against the shields, making the entire structure vibrate. Strike craft swarmed, launching missiles and torpedoes. Kael directed the station's automated defenses, targeting the smaller, faster ships, while trying to conserve energy for the main shield emitters. "Amari, Leora, get to the escape pods," Kael ordered, not taking his eyes off the tactical display. "Take the evidence. I'll hold them off as long as I can. Create a diversion for your escape." "No!" Amari cried, rushing to his side. "We're not leaving you." "We fight together," Leora added, surprisingly grabbing a heavy blaster rifle from the weapons locker, her diplomatic poise replaced by fierce determination. Before Kael could argue, a section of the outer hull breached with a deafening roar. Warning lights flashed, klaxons blared, boarding parties. Solara wasn't just bombarding them, she was sending in troops, and leading them, according to the internal sensors, was Solara herself. She wasn't delegating this. She wanted to oversee their destruction personally. Heavy combat erupted within the corridors of the stronghold. Kael, abandoning the main defense console to the station's limited AI, moved to intercept the boarders, flanked by Amari and Leora, who handled their weapons with surprising competence. They fell back section by section, sealing bulkheads, setting traps, using the station's layout to their advantage. Kael moved with deadly grace, his customized pistol and close combat skills taking down numerous attackers. But the enemy kept coming, disciplined soldiers, remorseless, efficient. And then they saw them, the cybernetic shock troopers, taller, faster, stronger than normal humans, their eyes glowing with cold blue light, integrated weapon systems whining as they fired. They were devastatingly effective, cutting through the station's automated defenses and pinning Kael and the sisters down. Finally, they were forced back into the main operations center, their last defensible position. The blast doors hissed open, and Solara Vex strode in, flanked by two of her imposing cyber troopers. She had changed since Kael had last seen her image. Subtle cybernetic enhancements traced across her temples, and one eye glowed with the same cold blue light as her troopers. She looked regal, powerful, and utterly devoid of warmth. Well, Solara purred, her voice amplified slightly, metallic. Sister Amari still alive, Sister Leora always meddling, and the ghost, her enhanced eye fixed on Kael, made solid. How disappointing. I expected better from the legendary Kael Vorn than hiding behind my pathetic siblings. Your reign of terror ends here. Solara, Amari spat. Raising her blaster, Solara laughed, a harsh grating sound. My reign is just beginning, little sister. Project Neuron is succeeding beyond my wildest dreams. Soon. The ascendancy, and then the galaxy, will know true order, true strength. Father was too weak, too sentimental to see the necessity. You, she gestured dismissively at Amari and Leora, are relics of a bygone era. You murdered our father. Raya's voice suddenly boomed from behind Solara. Kael spun in surprise. A hidden access panel, one Kael himself had installed for emergencies, slid open, and Raya emerged, energy sword ignited, followed by a handful of her most elite honor guards. They must have tracked Solara's fleet, followed them here, arriving just in time. Solara whirled, momentarily surprised. Raya, ever the loyal brute. You should have stayed put. I serve the true ascendancy, not a fratricidal monster. Raya roared, charging forward, her sword a blur of golden energy. The operations center exploded into a final, desperate battle. Kael engaged the cyber troopers, his speed and skill pitted against their raw power and armor. Amari and Leora provided covering fire, targeting Solara's guards. Raya dueled Solara, energy sword clashing against whatever defensive systems Solara had integrated into her own cybernetics. Sparks flying. It was a brutal, chaotic melee. Kael managed to disable one cyber trooper with a precisely aimed shot into its power core, but the other slammed him against a console, cracking the display. He fought back, using leverage and speed, finally managing to incapacitate it with a series of nerve strikes to its vulnerable joints. Raya fought like a cornered lioness, her grief and rage fueling her attacks. But Solara, enhanced and ruthless, met her blow for blow. She was faster, stronger than a normal human, anticipating Raya's moves, deflecting strikes with contemptuous ease. With a sudden, vicious counterattack, Solara disarmed Raya, sending her energy sword clattering across the floor, and delivered a powerful blow that sent Raya staggering back, wounded. Solara raised her hand, energy crackling around her fingertips, preparing a killing strike. Foolish sister, loyalty is weakness. Before she could fire, Amari screamed, "No!" and tackled Solara from the side, throwing off her aim. The energy blast went wide, vaporizing a section of the far wall. Solara snarled, throwing Amari off easily, but the distraction was enough. Kael, recovering, saw his chance. He lunged, not attacking Solara directly, but targeting the external power conduit feeding her visible cybernetics along her temple. His energy pistol fired at maximum intensity. The shot connected. Solara screamed, staggering back, sparks erupting from her implants as they overloaded. Her enhanced eye flickered and died. Weakened, disoriented, she stumbled. Raya, ignoring her injury, surged forward, retrieving her sword. Before Solara could recover, Raya delivered the final blow, not a killing strike, but a precise disabling cut that severed the main power conduits to Solara's remaining enhancements and knocked her unconscious. Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of damaged systems and ragged breathing. Solara lay defeated. Her remaining guards surrendered to Raya's honor guard. The battle was over. In the aftermath, they surveyed the damage. Kael's stronghold was heavily damaged, possibly beyond repair, but they were alive. Solara was captured, and crucially, the evidence was intact. Leora immediately opened a secure channel, using Kael's boosted comms array, contacting allies within the Galactic Council, informing them of Solara's capture and their imminent arrival with proof of her crimes. Rai attended to her wounds and secured Solara, stripping her of any remaining hidden tech. Amari retrieved the data chip, holding it like a sacred trust. Kael watched them, a sense of weary completion settling over him. He had done it. He had protected Amari, helped expose a horrific conspiracy, and brought down a tyrant. But the cost was his anonymity, his solitude. He was now inextricably linked to the Vex dynasty and their galactic drama. Their arrival at the Galactic Council chambers on Coruscant Minor caused a sensation. Escorted by Raya's honor guard and council security forces, the three Vex sisters, Amari, Leora, and Raya, along with the enigmatic Kael Vorn, presented their case. Solara, stripped of her enhancements and held in a high-security containment field, could only watch in impotent fury as Leora laid out the evidence, the audio logs, the Neuron Project data, financial records, witness testimonies Kael had subtly gathered. The council members listened, their faces shifting from skepticism to shock, then to outrage as the full scope of Solara's atrocities was revealed. The proof was undeniable, overwhelming. Solara Vex was condemned for treason, murder, and crimes against sentience. Her faction within the Ascendancy crumbled without her leadership. With Solara deposed, the question of succession arose. The Council, respecting planetary sovereignty, but concerned about stability, looked to the remaining sisters. Then, the presiding counselor invoked an obscure, ancient law, one dating back to the chaotic founding years of the Republic, the Dynastic Unification Clause. It stipulated that under circumstances where a royal bloodline was fractured by treason and subsequently saved by an external protector, that protector held the right, should the surviving royals consent, to unify the dynasty through marriage to the bloodline, ensuring stability and rewarding the defender. All eyes turned to Kael. He stood beside the sisters, a silent, imposing figure. Marry Amari, Raya, and Leora. Become a prince consort, a ruler in the Cygnus Ascendancy. The power, the influence, was his for the taking. Amari looked at him, her expression unreadable, but hinting at a deep gratitude that transcended politics. Raya gave a gruff nod of respect, acknowledging his skill and courage. Leora watched him with keen interest, perhaps seeing a powerful, albeit unconventional, political asset. The council waited. The galaxy watched. Kael Vorn, the ghost assassin who craved anonymity above all else, stepped forward. He looked at the sisters, then at the assembled council, honorable counselors. His voice was quiet, but carried in the vast chamber. I acted not for power or title, but because it was necessary. The Vex dynasty deserves leaders who rule with integrity, not ambition fueled by cruelty. He paused, his gaze sweeping over the sisters. Princesses Amari, Raya, and Leora are capable, strong leaders. They will rebuild their home, heal their people. They do not need an outsider, especially one like me, bound to their throne by archaic law. He bowed slightly. I renounce any claim offered by the Dynastic Unification Clause. My path lies elsewhere. I seek only justice, not thrones. A murmur went through the chamber. Kael turned, met Amari's gaze for a long moment, a silent understanding passing between them, then walked away from the podium, away from the power, the politics, the offer of a life he never wanted. He disappeared through a side exit, melting back into the shadows from whence he came, leaving the Vex sisters to face their future, united and free, ready to lead. 3 years passed. The Cygnus Ascendancy, under the joint leadership of Empresses Amari, Raya, and Leora, slowly began to heal. Solara served a life sentence in a maximum security rehabilitation facility. The Neuron Project was dismantled, its horrific data sealed, and a massive effort was undertaken to find and help its victims. Treatment centers were established, funded by the Vex Treasury, dedicated to undoing the psychological and physiological damage inflicted upon the surviving children. Progress was slow, the scars deep, but hope had returned to the ascendancy. One day, at the largest treatment center on Cygnus Prime, housed in a repurposed wing of the old Imperial Palace, a new specialist arrived. He was quiet, unassuming, his face bearing subtle scars that hinted at a difficult past, his eyes holding a deep, weary wisdom. He possessed an uncanny knack for reaching the most traumatized children, his calm presence and gentle patience breaking through barriers others could not. He worked tirelessly, assisting the medical teams, developing new therapeutic techniques, offering comfort and protection. Few knew his real name or where he came from. He simply called himself Kael. Amari, visiting the center, saw him interacting with a young girl who had been nonverbal since her rescue. He wasn't doing anything extraordinary, merely sitting with her, sketching patterns on a datapad, radiating quiet empathy. The girl hesitantly reached out, touching the screen. A connection made. Amari watched, a soft smile touching her lips. She walked over, not as Empress, but as Amari. "Welcome back, Kael," she said softly, so only he could hear. Kael looked up, a faint, rare smile gracing his own features. The ghost had found a new purpose, not as an assassin wielding death, but as the healer fostering life. He was no longer unseen, no longer unbound. He was part of something larger, helping to mend the very wounds he had inadvertently helped create years ago. Surrounded by the fragile hope of the children he protected, and reunited in purpose with the royals he had saved, Kael Vorn, the legendary assassin, finally found a measure of peace, not in solitude, but in connection, in healing, in family, however improbable, however unexpected. The ending wasn't a throne, but something far more valuable: redemption and a place to belong, under the slowly clearing skies of the Cygnus ascendancy.